Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper. Prepare to go to the edge.
3 years. Over 1,000 followers. 30,000 downloads in the archives.
Welcome to S4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4, the official radio broadcast of Forest Moon Paranormal, with host Eric Cooper and our panel of enlightened minds. Coming to you live from FMP headquarters located in the heart of Skagit Valley, Washington, at the base of the majestic North Cascade Mountains. We will take you through a journey of exploration as we examine every aspect of the metaphysical. From spirits, UFOs, Bigfoot, and conspiracies, to grounding, protection, astral travel, and everything in between, leaving you with a better understanding and comprehension of the world around you, and the entities that inhabit it.
Join us every Saturday night at Spreaker.com and locally on KSVU 90.1. Don't forget to check out our new webpage at www.s-4radio.com.
Now sit back, open your mind, get ready, because this is S4.
Good evening or morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to S4, the dark voice of the paranormal and conspiracy, coming to you live from the S4 headquarters in the heart of the Cascade Mountains at eastern Skagit County in Washington State. S4 is the voice where you'll hear everything covering all aspects of the paranormal, from hauntings and alien interaction, Bigfoot and other cryptids, and everything in between that makes you question reality. We also cover topics for safety, such as disaster and terrorist response and preparation, veterans issues on Memorial and Veterans Days, and not only can you find S4 right here on Spreaker and S-4radio.com, but for our local listeners also on KSVU 90.1 FM from 10 to 12 on Saturdays with pre-recorded shows. So tonight it's November 16th, and tonight we're talking about a topic many folks don't quite understand. Divination. What is divination? And is it evil? So divination encompasses pendulums, tarot cards, Ouija boards, scrying and scrying mirrors. Is it really dangerous, and why? And tonight with us we have a special guest, Bill Hauser, the master of the spirit box. So we have Cole Wegleitner and Kayla Wegleitner, our co-host and research specialist. And how are we all doing tonight?
Perfect.
Good.
Awesome. Doing excellent.
And you know, I'm glad we grabbed you last minute, Bill, seriously, because you're a perfect person for tonight's topic. I mean, with a spirit box and whatnot, that's the ideal divination. I guess it's not quite divination, but neither is a Ouija board. When you look at it, it's a communication tool. So
Yeah, definitely.
but it still falls into that realm. Everyone calls it divination, but divination technically is pendulums, which I know you use, tarot cards, rune stones, scrying mirrors, things like that. But we're going to hit them all tonight. And we got to give a shout out because, I look at the location of where our listeners are, and we actually have somebody in Oman. I think that's awesome. We have a Middle Eastern listeners. I think that's too cool. So thank you for listening if you're listening tonight from Oman. It's wet. It's cold. It's raining. I think winter's here. What do you think, Cole? And Bill, because you're just right over the border. You're like, what, 45 minutes from here?
Yeah, about that.
Is it raining?
Yeah, it's raining. We got that, what do you call it, Pineapple Express coming in from Hawaii. So it's fairly mild temperatures, but very wet.
Right. Okay,
Yeah, it
so
sucks out.
let's get started with pendulums. So tell us a little bit about pendulums, Bill.
Well, it's a type of divination tool. You could use it for questions. That's why a lot of people use it. I tend to use it a lot for energy, picking up energy off objects and that. But, down the way, I have used it a little bit for questions. Sometimes, like map dowsing, especially in an old graveyard. Basically, the records aren't all that great, so you try to find location of the number of the headstone plot. And so I've used it in that regards, and it's worked quite well for me.
Has anyone ever told you oh my God, it's dangerous to use a pendulum?
Not an awful lot. People say, well, it's kind of on the borderlines, shall we say, but generally, most of the people I am in communications with are quite supportive of using pendulum.
Mm-hmm. When you look at it, so when you look at divination tools, it's all energy work. That's all it is.
Yeah,
And
I would agree.
if you use the same concepts, like we always encourage people to do with grounding and shielding, it keeps you safer while you're using them. You hand a kid a saw and tell them to go make a table, or a hammer and tell them to go make a table. Yeah, they're going to get hurt. They don't have the training. They haven't learned how to use the tools. Same thing with a Ouija board and any other divination device. It's all about mental projection, essentially, and protecting yourself while you're using them. If you don't know how to use them properly, yeah, they can be dangerous. But all they are is tools of communication.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, grounding is very important when you do stuff in the paranormal, especially if it's ghost hunting, right down to divination, and especially things like pendulum work and even tarot cards and so on, and many others. So, yeah, I think grounding is very important, being able to be grounded and protected.
So how accurate is it when you use your pendulum? Uh, Rough ballpark.
Well, I would put maybe, I'm going to put a modest around 85 to 88 approximately percent. I would say that it's working pretty good for me, especially when I first did the cemetery, finding that one grave site that was the records weren't too clear, but I had a copy of the map, and it pinpointed me right in the right area. And of course, there was overbrush, and it was a derelict type cemetery. So basically, it pointed me right to the area and cleaned it up, and I was able to locate that gravesite.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So that was the first time. That's the first time doing that. So I guess
Right.
it has a certain level of accuracy. I think it's your desire, how much you want to find something, like if you're using it in that content.
Well, yeah, and the more energy you put into what you're looking for, like in that case, especially when you really want to find it, you put that energy out, and the energy is going to guide the pendulum. Um, so, what's the most memorable event you've had with your pendulum?
Let's see. That would really be memorable.
Yeah.
I would say picking up energy off of this one object that I wasn't too sure about. And basically, from that, I was able to look at the case in which that area, where that object was from, and be able to kind of piece together a little bit of a profile. And that way, I'm able to go in there and investigate more efficiently.
Oh, right on. How long have you been using it?
The pendulum, I've been using that way before the ghost box. So I've been using that, I'd say, 81, 82, I started playing with them and then getting more grounded information on how to use them and directions from people that were experienced. And then I went to the L rods because I like, the outdoor stuff, and being able to find underground streams and stuff like that was interesting because I kind of had a tie-in later with the ghost hunting aspect. It's, like you say, everything comes back to energy. And so you got a little creek running through under your property, your house, deep down, and that's creating certain types of geomagnetic forces that would cause disturbances that could easily cause paranormal activity.
Now, just for clarification, the L rod is a metal. It's two metal rods, actually, is it not? That
Yeah.
have like a bent tip at the end, and you hang on to it. It's what we call dowsing rods.
Yeah, that's another term for them. The ones I have, they're 360, so basically they move very freely. And so I use my thumb to start and then release my thumbs off the bend part of the L rod and then be able to lift it at, almost at chest level and do a walk and be able to try to detect with it.
Oh, right on. And so, what got you started with pendulums and L rods?
I guess probably I saw them one time being used on a show, and it was vaguely, I can't remember the show, but it was on TV, and it was to do with mediums and psychics and that, and they were using pendulums, and I found that very interesting. And then, of course, next time I visited a metaphysics shop, they had some, so I was able to purchase, an inexpensive metal pendulum.
Right on. And for folks that are curious on where to pick these up, yes, usually if you want to find a pendulum, you pick a stone. It depends on the kind of pendulum you want. Some of them are copper, some of them are metal, some of them are actual stones. You do some research, do some studying, figure out which stone calls to you, and then you go to a store. So the typical store you want to go to, like Bill said, is a metaphysical shop. And you look at them all. You hold them. And the one that you're supposed to take home will let you know you're supposed to take me home. That's how
Oh,
it
yeah.
works.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I found too places like flea markets will have some handcrafted ones that are really interesting. So I've actually purchased a couple through the years that way as well.
Now, let's see. Spirit boxes.
Yes.
When did you get started in spirit boxes and why?
Well, that started around 2010, and it was around 2009 I was starting to, show a little bit of interest in what these things were doing at that time. That was kind of a big hype time for the spirit boxes. And of course, Frank Sumption, he sort of led the way, and he basically automated the whole use of a radio. So basically, you have a radio that continuously scans and never stops. And so I got basically a Radio Shack one. I went down to Bellingham because Radio Shack at that time it was no longer in existence in Canada. So the closest one was Bellingham. So I went down and I purchased one. I brought it back, and it was a simple hack. You take it apart and bend the pin on it, and then basically put it all back together and start it scanning very nicely.
Yeah, Radio Shack's even hard to find here anymore.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. It's kind of gone the way of the dinosaurs. So But you still find hack shack ones, and sometimes that I have picked up a few of them at like flea markets. Sometimes you can find used ones and that are able to be hacked fairly easily.
So Cole and Kayla, you got questions? Jump in anytime.
Honestly, this one's hard because I don't know anything about these items. Like, the only time, this is going to sound so stupid because I don't even want to admit that I've seen this.
Oh, man.
But the only time I've ever seen someone use a pendulum is on Charmed.
That's
And
not stupid at all.
I've never seen Charmed. Shut up. You watch Charmed.
Charmed was a great show when it was in its earlier stages. At least you didn't say The Craft, because then I would have smacked you.
I don't remember them using pendulum in that one.
They didn't.
Did they?
Didn't. No. Yeah,
Okay.
So
How do you know what tool to use? Or do you use all of them and see which one works best? Or
pretty much, you go with the one that's the most comfortable for you. And I wish Markham was here tonight because Markham played with pendulums for a long time. I think he still does. I think pendulum is the safer one that people think. I think it's more psychological, but I believe pendulum is the one that most people use because, well, they don't think it's any danger to it. And it's no different than tarot decks or rune stones or it's divination. And so when you say...
Isn't it pretty much exactly the same thing as a Ouija board?
Yes and no, because when you look at the lighter forms of divination, such as, so what the difference is, and we'll get into the Ouija boards last hour, but the difference is the Ouija board opens up, it just opens the door. So anything can walk in. And that's where you get more malevolent entities because, well, the door's open. You use tarot decks, rune stones, pendulums, it's a higher vibration, a higher energy. The malevolent ones will not come through a higher vibration or higher energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
You have mostly spirit guides. You have mostly the lighter entities, the lighter spirits that will come through and communicate through the tarot, through the or some people call it the tarot, but through tarot decks, through pendulums, things like that. That's your higher vibration entities. That's why the Ouija board's got such a bad name. It opens the basement door.
Well, in a sense, it's a way to open portals of lower vibration that definitely can cause you a lot of problems.
And again, it is how you use it. Most people that have problems actually didn't close it properly. Which to close it properly, you put your planchet on goodbye. If anyone smart is going to have set up a circle, and they close the circle, and in essence, close the board. I also read somewhere you're supposed to keep the planchet and the board completely separate. It's kind of like keeping your ammunition away from your weapon.
Well, that's a good analogy.
Well, your planchet is what they communicate through. That's your.
Yeah,
that's
the most important part of the instrument to the board.
Now, is that just a piece of glass or is it a stone?
It could be either or. If you go get the Hasbro version, then you're going to get a piece of glass or a piece of plastic. If you've got one that was handcrafted, it is going to be a crystal. Or rose quartz, or it's a personal preference. Usually a crystal though, because a crystal holds energy anyway. So if you use a crystal on a Ouija board, you're gonna have a whole lot more power going through that board,
Oh
and the
yeah,
whole
definitely.
and the door's gonna be a lot wider. Think of a garage door instead of
Yeah.
the bedroom door, because they're gonna be drawn to the crystal anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Like you're saying, quartz crystal and rose crystal and all those. Those are amplifiers, and so basically they amplify your thought to what you want to accomplish by using that board.
And Uncle Joe's not gonna be Uncle Joe all the time.
Oh no, no, you're gonna have tricksters. You're gonna have masquerading spirits, so you have to use discernment and all that too. I mean, that's the thing about using something like a Ouija board. You really got to know what you're doing.
And so we'll get a lot more in depth with the Ouija board in the third hour. Um, I've got it. So you've got all these spirit box apps. What's your opinion of someone using an app called a spirit box versus the actual spirit box that you use?
Well, mine is basically kind of like a nuts and bolts kind of thing, but it's all transistors and capacitors and whatever makes up electronic components, tuners and so on for a ghost box. Uh, an app is just basically a computer software that basically my thoughts is you never know, are they manipulated to a degree, and now a lot of people have them where they're connected to their smartphones. So is there some form of where they hear certain phrases that you're using and then spit back words that sound good to you, and kind of give you that false positive. So that's my problem with using ghost box apps or spirit apps or whatever you want to call them.
And that's pretty much my thoughts on that as well. Anytime you're using a Wi-Fi connection, you're using your smartphone, uh, you know, Google listens, so they can hear what you're talking about around it. They can hear names that you're bringing up. They can hear, it's basically spying on you anyway. So it can easily manipulate your spirit app and throw in names that you've already been talking about. And oh my God, Bob was actually talking. And no, actually, somebody said Bob, and Google picked it up. Uh, that's my thoughts on it too. Um,
Yeah. Well, I know some of the apps have the basically a bank, they call it, where you put the audio in, and then that's what the app uses to form speech through. It could be anything that you put in, a foreign language in reverse, for example. Uh, Radio broadcast, record it. It could be whatever you want to put in there, and then basically, so that I might look at a little bit on the fence, but at the same time, that could have some possibilities depending on your intention by using the app.
Completely, and Trip says it perfectly too in the chat room. Most of them store words from your calls and things you've typed, and yeah, that's another
Yeah,
way of manipulation. So
yeah.
yeah,
I personally tend to be more of a radio guy, as they say. So, I really look at what Frank Sumption did, and he used radios, and basically he took the old radios apart and formed a ghost box. He built the board up. So, I mean, basically you got a radio, and so your accuracy, I think, would be a lot better because it's complete randomness. It's never going to be, every session is never the same with responses.
no, exactly. And I believe yours goes in reverse, does it not? Because I know a lot of the skeptics will say, "Oh, you're just running radio frequencies, and anybody can. You're getting clips and bits from radio shows and music and." But if you have a spirit box that is actually reversing these radio stations, the chances of picking up music in talk shows and things like that is pretty much eliminated, is it not?
To a certain degree. I mean, that's why, best that I think of is with Dave's show when I use the Echo speaker system, like basically an echo chamber. So basically, I can actually get it to a threshold where I cut out a lot of the broadcast radio. So if stuff's going to come through, it's going to be more of a direct response. So the intelligent response I always emphasize.
Now, when we were doing cases, we used a spirit box, and I believe it was the SB7 that we actually used on a couple different cases. And the client that we had, they actually had a full-blown conversation with their loved one that had passed on. So I know the validity of many of them. Not to mention listening to your box when you've been on Dave's show.
Yeah, well, yeah, I actually have a couple of the PSB7s. I just find them a bit noisy to work with, but yeah, they do work. I've gotten some great responses from them. And yeah, you have that opportunity if who you are targeting to communicate with, they'll use that device if they really want to speak to you.
Oh, absolutely, and it's great closure for a family when they get to say goodbye to their loved one.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've helped a lot of people. A lot of people after their loved ones and even good friends and so on. There's a lot of grief associated with thinking about their loved ones. So sometimes just hearing their voice again like that is therapy in a one way, that I think makes them feel good at the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed. So did you have a sample spirit box that you were going to play for us?
I got a new one I just got last week. It's the Ghost Box builder is K.D. Stafford of, I believe, Supernatural Inc. Is his paranormal group that he has. He's from the Kansas City area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's turn it on. This one's going to be a little more staticky, kind of like a PSP7, but this has got a random scan on it. And the neat thing is, from what I understood, it has a sensor in there. So it's like an environmental sensor. So if it speeds up, it's basically whatever wants to speed it up. I don't have no control over the speed rate of basically the Ghost Box.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll turn it on.
Excellent.
Who would like to talk to me? How are you tonight? Do you think it's possible to get a name? What's your name? Tell me, how many active spirits in my neighborhood right now? Are you here right now? Can you see me? What color t-shirt am I wearing if you can see me?
Sounds like blue.
Well, it's very close. It is a dark color. So do you have a message for us? I'm on a radio show right now. Do you have a message? Maybe you know somebody out there listening.
And Trish in the chat room, he swears at the very start he had a woman was coming through.
Yeah. What would you like to tell us? Are you doing okay at your end? Okay.
Yeah, I heard, oh yeah.
Yeah, me too. That's good. You're at peace then, I would assume. You at peace? Okay, well, we thank you for communicating. Goodbye.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah, that's the first time using that radio for a talk show session. So, yeah, I didn't know what to expect. So I hope it sounded okay.
Oh, it sounded fine on this end. What did you hear, Cole?
Well, at the beginning, I heard a woman coming through. Trip was right. Like I heard that too. It was a very clear voice of a woman. And then when you guys heard blue, I heard red.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what to say about that.
Well, blue, I guess, would be the closest to a dark color. So I am wearing a black T-shirt, but I have something on it that has blue. So maybe they're confusing sometimes. I think their perception of color sometimes can be a little different from ours. So maybe they're focused on what's on the T-shirt. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Now, when you're using one of those on a radio show like this, can it go through like the wires? And let's say if Eric was wearing a blue shirt, or
Yeah. I mean, I've had them because I wear black T-shirts a lot. I've had them peg me with black T-shirts quite a lot, or in some cases, I'm wearing a T-shirt that had like a rainbow of colors with an image on it, like a tie-dye kind of like look to it. And it came out with rainbow, the colors rainbow. I guess that's the best way they could describe it.
Well, no, I think what she's asking is like me. So, like, let's say there was a spirit on mine and Kayla's house right now. If that spirit could actually reach through the wires and talk to you through that box.
That's possible. I mean, if you're going through, the means that we are right now through electronic means, it could easily, if I'm asking questions about your place, for example, it could probably give me some interesting information. So,
no, I was just wondering because both me and Cole are both wearing blue shirts. That was all.
Well, so generally speaking, when a spirit box is used, all the energy is concentrated on the person asking the questions.
Yeah, it's to do with your contact field. So basically, by holding the radio, like I did, and then basically communicating, yeah, I'm getting that connection. So basically, contact field is the proper term in ITC circles. Mm-hmm. And basically, it's your connection to the radio, as I say, for a better term, so people understand it. So could be different radios that I'm using, and it's my connection to the radio and how I go about using it.
Okay.
Now, when you're using a spirit box, do you use any form of protection when you're using it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Even before the show tonight, I did a little prayer and so on, and just did the old visualizing white light and so on after. And because I knew I was going to probably use the ghost box a little bit just for sampling. And I always, anytime before turning the ghost box on, I always do a little prayer.
And that's good to hear, because you'd be surprised how many don't.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and actually, people have actually had some effect from the ghost box after. Sometimes they've actually had their energy drained, and it goes back to that whole energy thing and your connection to the radio.
Because that goes back to, I'd say, about 9.9% of the paranormal groups that go out and investigate laugh and scoff when you say anything about paranormal protection because, well, there's no dangers to the paranormal. Actually, there's a lot of dangers to the paranormal, and not just the mundane. You know, so
Well, even the provocation that some groups would do, and then probably adding that provocation technique to their ghost box sessions would definitely not be advisable.
oh no, and you know that was my next topic I wanted to discuss with you is what do you think about these people that use spirit box sessions and do EVP sessions and go out and taunt and provoke and I find it highly disrespectful because these are generally speaking humans that passed over. Would you want people taunting you?
Yeah, exactly. Again, I think by using the ghost box, I like to talk like I'm talking to just anybody in general, with definitely respect, no question about it, and just being polite. I think politeness goes a long ways in your sessions as well.
I fully agree. I fully
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. So the taunting definitely could, agitate or irritate or outright you could get negative effects that could actually manifest physically. So again, I do ask questions to the spirits, like time and time. I'll repeat the question, but that's only because I'm kind of pushing for an answer. So
Hmm.
you'll hear me do it that way, but I do it in a respectful way. So I try not to come across doing provocation.
It's funny because when you asked if they were at peace and if they were doing fine on the other side, and I heard a very clear, "Oh yeah," c- come through. Did you hear that, Cole, Caleb?
I honestly didn't. Not really.
Yeah, no,
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
no.
I heard a very clear, "Oh yeah," after he asked it. Now everyone's got their own perceptions unless it's a very deliberate answer.
I
Um,
also think that has something to do with the way we're set up as well.
Yeah.
We're on a Skype call, but you are the leader, so everything goes to you first, and then it comes to us.
oh,
Do you know what I
okay.
mean?
I got you. I got you. Um, but my point with that is not all spirits need to cross. We know that we've done this for how many years, and we know for a fact that not all spirits need to cross over. Some of them are having the time of their lives as spirits. I met a spirit in Germany that I've told this story before, but he was completely happy going to the bakery every morning and just messing with people. They, we've got the spirit here in concrete that lives in the hub. He's 22 years old, died in the 1900s, and doesn't want to cross because he's having the time of his life. Why do you pass spirits over that don't need to be? So the one that said "oh yeah" that I heard reminded me of the World War II pilot that died in Germany and is playing in the bakery every morning. So yeah, they're having the time of their life. And hey, there's a spirit box. Let's go talk to it. Um, do you, by chance, know the science behind why a spirit box works?
Well, I stick to one theory, and that was kind of one of the original theories, and that's basically you're continuously scanning the broadcast radio spectrum, and so like FM for these radios. So basically, it's taking and chopping up, shall we say, and this is a random scan, so it scans in a different way than say a linear scan. I would find that they're able to use that audio to form speech through, and basically that's kind of been the theory that I've stuck with for a long time.
Okay. So, what do you think of Halloween? Do you get a stronger reading from spirits through a spirit box during the October month versus other times of the year?
Well, I could say I did an event just a little not too far from Halloween on a Friday night, and it's a very historical location. And I was getting a lot of interesting responses. I was sitting, because now the location has a pub in there and food services and so on. So they were doing a wonderful, basically, how do you call, Halloween dinner and dance party. And the guests could move around, and my station was in the bar after the live performers. And so, yeah, it's interesting because each group I had different responses, and some of them were very interesting to say the least. And one lady actually, she's an older lady, she actually worked because it was a prison at one time, the BC Penitentiary. And as far as I know, she was in the administration area, and so she actually heard some voices come through that she definitely felt that were people that she felt from the past that she knew.
So do you think that you had that much activity due to the season or the location you're in, though?
I think a little both there, but well, they say Halloween's more open to, shall we say, it's more prime to spirit in general. There's different thoughts on it. It could be what you're putting in, your energy. It could be other aspects, anticipations, and so on. So I kind of look at, I really, on Halloween night, I didn't even do any ghost box sessions. So, but
Right.
I would say what I had been doing last month was pretty good throughout the whole month. I was getting some pretty good stuff coming through.
So what's the thinking back? And how many years have you been using the spirit box?
Since 2010.
Okay, so what's the
And I
if
started in February of 2010. So, yeah, so it's been almost 10 years now.
if you had to look back and you had to pick one piece of hands down no shit evidence, what would it be?
Oh, that would be quite a number of things. What I picked up on Dave's show, doing, even when you're doing it on a live radio show, but also on investigations, we've picked up voices of people that have passed over that are basically saying their names that were associated to that property.
Okay.
So that would be one good example. Again, a lot of stuff that I do for investigations, I never post any of that. I keep that all confidential. But any stuff I do myself or my podcast, whatever means that I go about doing them, sometimes I'll just get in the car and drive to a location and do them. And, I'll post that kind of stuff, or even, a YouTube video occasionally.
So what's your thoughts on I get asked by people sometimes. I watch these paranormal TV shows. They do ghost box sessions. Can activity come through my TV? So the same concept. If you're doing a spirit box session, say on Spaced Out Radio or like what you did tonight, can people have enhanced activity in their homes because of this?
That's a possibility because, it's coming through electronic means. So it's like, it's a portal into your communications device that from where I am. So, yeah, it's possible. And I think, too, it's how much you are strongly grounded. So, I mean, if you had a lot of, inner problems that you're working out, it might affect you more adversely. Or if you're more sensitive, like a medium.
I would agree, and I also have to say, I think it depends on how much you fear it. If you have that anticipation that, oh my God, something is going to happen because he's got a spirit box going on my radio show, then yeah, you're pulling those spirits to you.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people, don't fear it. If you don't fear it, it's not going to come over. Just enjoy your TV, enjoy your radio shows, and don't worry about now. If something happens, then you call a team. But I think too many people fear what they don't know, and I think it gets blown out of proportion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you start, fretting about something, yeah, you're just opening yourself up to a bigger situation. I tend to think that also here you are using a device like this. Yeah, it's mainly between me and that device most of the time. But,
Right.
if you're directing something out for somebody, you're going through that means to communicate. Yeah, it might possibly, but, I've had mostly very good reports back, so people aren't getting, badly affected by listening to Ghostbox sessions on the radio with me. So that's one good thing.
I also think that because you're the conduit, essentially, you're the one controlling the box. You are grounded. You are protected. I don't think anything can get past that.
Yeah, I would say. And, here's another aspect, too, of the Ghost Box. And other people that use the Ghost Box, like I do quite a lot as researchers, basically, here's a question you're going to ask, and you're just anticipating that question before you actually say it. The Ghost Box, a lot of times, won't answer that question. And I've checked with other people, and they've had those same experiences. So you have that aspect as well. They could almost basically read our thoughts.
So you're a paranormal investigator. You go on haunted sites, and do you go to people's homes, or do you stick to public locations?
I do both. I do mostly businesses and historical locations, but I do, get asked to go to people's homes. I do those as well. And a lot of times I get asked to go to people's homes just to do the sessions, but no investigation. But it's basically to try to get a hold of their loved ones or somebody they want to try to get through.
Okay.
And it can be sometimes a little sad. And, a lot of times they'll have pictures there and have me to be able to try to make even a better connection visually. And we've had some pretty interesting responses that they've recognized their loved ones' voices.
Yeah, and that's great. I remember when you were on Dave's show, I think it was 2 years ago, and I was in the chat room and asked if my grandma was okay, and you asked what her name was, and she said Janie, and well, that I'm doing fine, Eric, and yeah, that was confirmation for me.
Wow, yeah, that's good.
So
I had
when you
something with Joe Roop too. He told me that I was able to get his mom through too, so he told me privately after the show one time. So yeah, it does happen, even with the host of the show. So it can do that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go on an investigation, do you rely solely on the spirit box, or do you do research on location to find names that might have died there, or historical evidence that if Smith comes through on the spirit box, and you've done historical background research and know that there was a Joe Smith that lived there, you have confirmation evidence based on historical background as well as the spirit box. Do you do that kind of research?
Yeah, I try to if the information's available, especially if it's a well-known historical location. That has a lot of information that helps, and so a lot of that can be obtained through the internet, and especially if to some level that it's through a sub-agency of the government funding, say a historical location, so it's like a working historical location, so they have it set up like a museum as an association. So I do get a lot of interesting stuff that way.
Excellent. Now, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was your spirit box that picked up Bigfoot. Have you ever tried to connect with Bigfoot before?
No, that was the first time on the show, and yeah, we heard some very unusual sounds. So yeah, it's possible that you're going to pick up animal sounds. If I mean, I know that's heavily contested in the Bigfoot community, if it's flesh and blood or if it's, an entity or a spirit. But, I managed to get some unusual sounds that would possibly be Bigfoot. I can't say for sure.
Have you ever taken your spirit box in the woods or up in the mountains?
Yes. Yes, I have. Again, here in British Columbia, you get up in some areas, you're not going to get a lot of broadcast radio coming out, so especially up near Dave's area. But, the funny thing is, I was able to get stuff at the 108th Site Heritage Ranch. And also, when I was up at Dave's, we went up to Flight 21, and I didn't think we were going to get anything way up there. And sure enough, I was getting some very interesting stuff. A lady's voice came through, and it said Simpson. And a lady that was on the passenger list was named Simpson. And then a very kind of a freaky laugh sound. It sounded creepy. And that was in the second video that I did with Dave, and we're beside some wreckage site. I was making reference to the crash site, and it laughed. And, yeah, that was pretty weird. And so, yeah, it's happening.
Cool. Kayla,
Yeah.
got any questions?
Do you ever get like any animal spirits that come through though, like a barking dog or a meowing cat, anything like that?
Well, funny thing you say that. I have had a barking dog. That was around a park area. But the funny thing was, it was a very calm day in the way of weather and that, and not very much wind. And there was no dog in the general area when I was doing the session. And sure enough, a dog come barking through. You could definitely hear a dog barking. So, again, that's a possibility that an animal that, might, with his master, used to walk the park. I don't know, but it was weird.
Cool.
Now, elementals, I don't know about that so much. What would they sound like and so on? So you have to kind of think of that aspect as well. I mean, they could possibly use that, but it might not be audible voices that you could recognize.
With the Bigfoot community, usually you get the wails, you get the primate sounds, you get just unearthly howls. So if you're looking for a Bigfoot noise, I would go with that.
Now, do you think that that's actually picking up like a live Bigfoot or a spirit of a past Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it might be both, to be honest with you. Both, a current Bigfoot that might be in the general area in the bush there, and possibly a passed over one as well. If you kept doing it, I'm sure that would be a big attraction eventually for those Bigfoots that have passed over.
And I would agree, because I think it has to do with frequency, and I believe Bigfoot, in my opinion, being a supernatural creature, could use that same frequency to communicate.
Yeah, I tend to think Bigfoot's a lot more than just flesh and blood. I think it appears that way to us, but I think it definitely has a little bit more behind its energy and being able to just disappear and we can't find it. People have hunted for it and then it pops back up at another area. So it's a very elusive animal, as they say, or creature. Let's say creature. But again, I mean, I think it's a bit of both flesh and blood and, supernatural energy to it.
Now, jumping over to the extraterrestrial side, have you ever picked up anything? I know, especially up at Dave's, have you ever picked up anything that sounded possibly extraterrestrial?
We have on the radio gotten some very unusual responses. One in particular was just a little tune or a notes of the third kind when I was asking. So that was very unusual. Just the timing and everything was just, it just didn't make sense that would just come through at that particular time for asking.
Right.
And I have gotten some I would say almost robotic voices coming through the ghost box with Dave. And also, when I have done that myself, I've actually, made some attempts to try to contact aliens. And, the stories of alien bases up in the mountains here and that. So I've asked questions, even on my podcast, and I've gotten some pretty interesting responses. And voices from what I think is regular people passing information on to me.
And that reminds me of I was listening to a video podcast. Her name's Lorelei, and she uses the Executioner's box a lot. Well, she used to. That was a couple years ago again. And I was typing in chat, and I asked her if there was any extraterrestrials around, and she asked it, and what came across was we're in the ship above your house, and well, she kind of freaked out a little bit, and she private messaged me and was like, "Well, why are you asking that?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm just curious. Do aliens come through the spirit boxes?" And she proceeded to tell me a story about her past, and that yes, there was a UFO that was known to be over her house. So it's always made me wonder if extraterrestrials or off-worlders can actually communicate through these devices.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially on an FM band. That actually, if you think of the FM band, the quality of that frequency, that our car radios, that signal going out from the antenna of the radio station, it has to be at a high point. So usually the highest point, like around where I am, they usually have them up on the mountains here.
Mm-hmm.
Line of sight, they say, for FM frequency, but basically once it gets past the Earth's curvature, it's going out into outer space.
Yeah, I'm thinking here. So, what is, in your opinion, the best spirit box to use?
I think it's what works for you. There's been lots of claims this works good, or even some builders really build up on some of their boxes that they build custom built for you. Again, I think, you have to take the chance to, if you purchase one, that it's going to work for you well. And what I've done for that same reason is a lot of times when I go out on investigation, I'll have maybe 2, maybe 3 ghost boxes that I can bounce around. So if they prefer one box over the other.
So it's more or less personal preference.
Yeah, and you have to think about at their end, are they able to use that box at that particular time?
So for any listeners that are curious and want to get into looking into a spirit box, what would your advice be?
I would say to start with, you can go through these ghost hunting outfitter stores online and just get a PSP-7. And, there's the S-Box and a few other ones out there that are not that expensive, under $100, basically US, I would say now, the price of it, and use it with an external speaker and, keep your scan rate moderately high, but not, to a comfortable level that you can understand. And use it that way as your first one. And if you really do well, move up and go to a custom built from, say, one of the builders out there. We have some really good ghost box builders in the United States that I've dealt with through the years, as well as in the UK and United Kingdom. And so these guys do a great job, and especially the Codeless 89 I use a lot with Dave's show. That box in particular, a lot of its circuitry the guy built from the board up, so a lot of it's fashioned after French Sumption, and then he just sort of modernized some of the circuitry a little bit. And so you got a nice clean scan with it, and then of course through the Echo Box system that works really well.
And that's excellent advice. Start small and work your way up, because the bigger boxes, even the cheapest real spirit box, it's nuts and bolts, is what, $300 or $400, right?
Well, I mean, if you get your hands on an old hack shack and hack it, or, there's different radios. I know Asia, there's some radios there you can, most stuff is built, commercially. So if you find one that can be hacked, yeah, you could go that route. You could buy that at a flea market, for example.
The ones that you use most often, are they usually battery operated or are they like recharge?
They're battery operated. I tend to use drop-in batteries, so I like to do it that way. Mainly because, I go out in the field a lot, so having it charged if you're out somewhere and, you don't have any means to charge it, so it's nice to have drop-in batteries, like AA's or in some cases 9-volt batteries. Some of the hack shacks are AAA batteries, and then I use it that method, and an good quality alkaline battery, no dollar store batteries, that's for sure.
Right.
All right, awesome. And so let's hold those thoughts, and when we come back, we will continue our discussion of spirit boxes. And we are at the top of the hour. It is time for break, so stay tuned.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
Forest Moon Paranormal is a non-for-profit emergency response team that handles all aspects of the paranormal, helping you, your family, friends, and community since 2004. Whether you're having a problem with hauntings, spirits, Bigfoot, other types of cryptids, or UFO activity. Maybe you're just unsure of what's bothering or terrifying you. Or maybe you're just afraid of criticism and disbelief. FMP is here for you. We handle cases globally and locally from our headquarters in Skagit County, Washington. We never accept any form of payment for our services and are 100% confidential. You can find us on Facebook under Forest Moon Paranormal. You can private message us for assistance, or just come join in the discussion and become part of our growing FMP community.
Hey S4ians, please check out one of our newest sponsors, Wiser Books. They're an imprint of Red Wheel Wiser. They publish books across the entire spectrum of occult and esoteric subjects. Their mission is to publish quality books that will make a difference in people's lives without advocating any one particular path or field of study. They value the integrity, originality, and depth of knowledge of their authors. Please check them out at redwheelwiser.com.
We've had several days of 80-degree plus weather here in Concrete, Washington. My family's favorite way to keep cool in this heat is to stop by Java Zone 2 and grab a delicious iced latte for me and a blended mocha for my husband. Our son just loves their creamy milkshakes, and our daughter can't get enough of their ice cream. The best part is, Java Zone 2 is conveniently located just off Highway 20 beside Loggers Landing. And I'm proud to shop local for a business that has been a staple of the Concrete and Upriver community since it opened its doors in 2010. So if you're looking for a way to keep cool in this summer heat, come check out Java Zone 2. They're fast, friendly, and local.
All of us here at S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal would like to thank everyone who attended and supported our 2019 Paracon. It was an amazing event that we couldn't put on without our sponsors, our speakers, and our volunteers. Be sure to keep an eye on our Facebook group, Forest Moon Paranormal, for all your updates on Paracon 2020, September 26th, 2020. Thank you again to everyone.
Well, hello there. Us here at S4 would like to remind you out there that the UFOI team weekly meetings are broadcast live on Facebook from Denny's, where America eats, each Monday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at UFOI Team on Facebook. The UFOI team's gear, product store, and newsletter are located on their website at ufoiteam.com. To contact the UFOI team with your sightings report or a paranormal story, send an email to theUFOIteam@gmail.com. Keep looking up and tell us your story.
Hey everyone, Cole here with S4 Paranormal Radio, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. Looking for a way to get the word out there about your business, group, team, or product? Let us help you. A few clicks is all it takes to get started at s-4radio.com, or you can contact me at 360-999-2830. Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Alright, welcome back to S4 tonight. We have What is Dangerous About Divination? And tonight we have with us Cole and Kayla and Bill Hauser. So, so what was going on in your house while we were talking during break?
Oh, when the spirit box first came on, like after that voice of that woman came across it, my Google Home behind me turned on and clicked to the green and like just did its little bloop like it was on. So that was a little weird.
Yeah.
Did
it was listening in.
Did it take
Right.
you to did it take you to a website?
No. No, it did not.
Damn it. So, Bill, have you ever gone to a location to do a spirit box session and had your batteries drained?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've had that even on a radio show. Occasionally I've had that happen. So I tend to always, want to have backup batteries just in case. So that is a very good possibility it could happen. So that's why you want to use high quality batteries for your ghost box. No dollar store batteries. That's for sure. Yeah, you want you want high quality.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Could you build a spirit box with a secondary crank in it?
Like power source?
Yeah.
Well, you could have I know some ghost boxes actually have been built where the custom ones where they have rechargeable battery capabilities. So if you're more in the lines of, being more, let's say, environmentally conscious instead of drop-in batteries like I use, unfortunately, but yeah, it's very possible you can go that route.
What are you thinking of, Kayla? You thinking of like the rechargeable flashlights that have the crank?
Yeah. Like the little crank motors. Like you can they have ham radios and stuff that have like the little crank motors on them. And then yeah.
I've not seen one like that yet. So maybe down the way some ghost box builder will be a little bit more environmentally conscious and come up with that concept. Mm-hmm. You charge your battery ahead of time. That's actually a very interesting. That
I can't see that because I can't see any person who's investing in a ghost want to sit there crank. You there? Crank.
How long would your charge last? That's my question.
Well, it depends on the crank.
On those flashlights.
On the little flashlights, it doesn't last very long at all. But there's crank-operated generators and stuff that last hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah, and it's how it's stored, and if it's high-end capacitors or whatever the story is, the electronics of it.
Right.
No, that's when you say, "Hey, Jalen, I'll give you $5 if you crank this crank for 2 hours."
Well, it's just that, like in the old horror movies, they used to have those big. Oh God, I can't even remember what they're called now. They have a horn on them. You crank it, and it plays like a old vinyl.
Oh yeah, the early days of records.
Yeah, and like the old horror movies, they would crank that, and sometimes like a voice would come through that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like
Yeah,
An
kind
old
of.
school,
Yeah,
like almost steampunky, like
yeah.
spirit
Things that.
box.
Yeah, I think
For
that
it.
was some of the kind of stuff Edison was working and developing in his day, the inventor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, electronics can be manipulated. We know that by the paranormal in general. What's your thoughts? Because I know Markham was working on doing the old reel-to-reel and trying EVPs that method. So what's your thoughts on going old school and going like reel-to-reel or the old cassette deck or things of that nature?
Well, when I first started doing ghost hunting, that's what I was using was a little portable cassette player and recorder, and yeah, it was how I first started doing EVPs, like traditional EVPs. So, and EVP work is a form of ITC, instrument trans communication. So, using any electronic device for, say, a spirit communication.
Right.
Because you'll hear that thrown out there, that abbreviation ITC a lot. So I just thought I'd kind of clarify a little bit what the meaning of that is.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's only a couple ITC companies that I'm aware of that are
Yeah,
actually
they have.
heavily involved.
Yeah. Well, they actually have it worked into their business name, but you will hear a lot of people describe the whole concept, or just throw it out there as ITC, and it's just, I mean, for someone who doesn't really understand ghost box and everything, it's going to sound a little odd, or they might even find it impressive having a sound abbreviation like that. But you should know what that means. So I think that's important, just like EVP, electronic voice phenomena, because that's thrown out there a lot, especially with ghost hunting shows and that. So.
And the funny part is, ask half the ghost hunting shows what EVP means, and they'll say, "I don't know. I just
Exactly.
it's an EVP."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're going to talk about what were you going to talk about?
Oh, I was just going to mention about Frank Sumption, about how he used to make contacts with aliens that he believed that he was talking to entities, and they even had a nickname for him. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not anything new to do that with the ghost box. I know there's been other people besides him after that have made claims of alien communication. So again, what I've understood is a lot of times they'll sound slightly robotic in their return in voice.
Okay. Yeah, because generally speaking, extraterrestrial communication is through telepathy, or mind communication versus audio or verbal communication. So the robotic, they're manipulating electronics, so it's going to come across as robotic, and that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's like even traditional EVP, you only get maybe 2 words, maybe 3 sometimes, maybe 4 if you're very lucky in a little phrase. You get a lot of one words thrown out, some higher than others. So you have the different class A, B, C EVPs, and even with using the ghost box, you'll have more dominant voices and less. You have to turn the volume up, and especially if your speaker's more bassier, you can bring them out more as the lower responses.
So, what you do versus the old school EVP, I would have to say, you've got you're working in real time.
Yes.
Versus someone that goes into, with an audio recorder and asks questions. They have to go home, upload it into the computer, and listen to hours and hours of evidence, listening for voices. So I think it's a lot better, with the methods that you use.
Yeah, well, even if I do recordings, especially with a digital recorder, especially on investigations, I still tend to use more like an EVP method. I may go 10 to 15 minutes, and then after, when I get back later and review my evidence, I look for little highlights that I can save little responses that have intelligence responses behind them, and do it that way so people can understand. Again, when you're listening to the ghost box, your perception of it is different, and it's sometimes harder to listen because, if you don't have an enhancing echo effect speaker, basically you're listening to a lot of white noise and the clicking. With some radios, they have more profound clicking sounds for the scanning. So people kind of get caught up with all that, and they don't really understand when a response is coming through.
And I gotta stop real quick and say, hey, Alon's, we got Pointy Stick Joe in the chat room now.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Hey, Joe.
Good evening, Joe.
And to answer your question, Joe, the way you communicate with an X is with a pointing stick.
Right.
That is not the way to communicate with an alien.
Exactly. So Joe's saying in the chat room he couldn't communicate with his ex. How the hell is he supposed to communicate with an alien? Well, the alien will probably understand you better. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So, and I'm still stuck on you heard the music from the Close Encounters of the Third Kind through your spirit box. And it makes you wonder if some races out there communicate through music anyway.
Yeah, well, you do get some spirits that actually, they call them the sing-song responses. They kind of follow with, say, while it's scanning and there's music going through and it's kind of cross-channeling over just shortly with that fraction of time. Yeah, you can get that as well. So they're using the music to create their response. So they're modulating their response that way.
So it leads to, it makes me wonder if Bigfoot would actually communicate in maybe the same way, because, we've got two different stories where music or tone had to do with Bigfoot communication, and one was when Markham was up here in the gravel pit, and we heard a Bigfoot knock that actually had tone. It was like a boom, 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 boom.
Kind of like a code.
Yeah. And then we have Larry Anderson's story about his buddy that went out and was playing guitar. And he played guitar for like 2 or 3 hours. He left. He's up in the middle of nowhere. There's no people. Up here, there's so many desolate areas upriver that, there was nobody there. He left. He went back the next day, and he was gifted a pile of flowers right where he'd been playing. So, again, music seems to be a common denominator between both Bigfoot and some of the off-world races.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the tones, the melodies of music, and it could be a number of things. A lot of frequencies behind that we just wouldn't think about that they could work with.
Well, and it goes back to energy in a sense.
Yeah, they would definitely be energy body in their own right to work with that. It's like the old tube radios. Those were interesting. Those were used in the early days of radio, and being able to go in between the radio stations and find that little space of staticky area where responses were happening through those tube radios was amazing.
So, again, with so tonight's theme is essentially what are the dangers of communication. I think of the movie White Noise. Do you guys remember the movie White Noise?
Yes.
I can't remember the actor that was in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Kevin Bacon?
It was. It was.
No.
Was it?
Maybe.
I think it was Kevin Bacon.
That shitheads and everything.
Well, I know the original, the first one, they actually filmed it in the Vancouver area. I know that for a fact. And Michael Keaton was the key role actor in it.
Okay.
Okay, so I was thinking about a really kind of strange concept here, and I don't know if they've made one of these, but you'd be the guy to ask. they ever made a spirit box that's like waterproof to the point where you could take it down to something like, let's say, the Titanic?
They would have to have really good seals on them. I have heard some waterproofing with some of the handheld models for commercial use for ghost boxes. Not all of them would have that, of course, but I have heard experiments. I think one was done in Kentucky with a researcher. I can't remember his name offhand, but he did one where he's a scuba diver, and he went down to a wreckage in a lake, and basically he used one of those Pelican seal boxes and recorded his sessions through that means. Now, how he did the wiring he apparently had some kind of waterproof headset that he was using under there. How he did that, I'm not sure, but he definitely was getting some communication in the depths of the lake. So we're looking at around 20 feet, maybe.
Okay.
And Joe says, interesting fact, the pool in the Titanic still has water in it.
So do all the cups in the dining area.
But that would be a great experiment, would be go down to the Titanic and see about getting, spirit communication.
Oh, yeah, and then I've heard people using induction microphones and getting some really interesting responses, and even old Morse code that just couldn't be explained in the general area.
Interesting.
And that would,
I want to go find the rock that the lady threw overboard.
the rock?
Like this necklace.
Oh,
jeez.
Okay. Yeah, I know they've done a lot of paranormal shows, but I tend not to get too caught up with paranormal shows because they're mostly entertainment based. So, but
right.
I know there has been there was that one famous medium. He did some work there. Just can't remember his name offhand. He used to wear a leather jacket all the time. Had a big bushy mustache, and he used to get a lot of interesting stuff that he, like a medium, his perception and what he was picking up, the information.
Yeah, it's amazing what those kind of mediums pick up off Google. We'll be talking about what to watch for with mediums later in the show as well. Because just a few years ago, actually, we had a psychic that got busted for, I think she embezzled $5,000 from a client, and just no.
There's been mediums, a few. Yeah,
but
been a few of those people.
Yeah, most true mediums, they don't run around saying I'm a psychic medium. They don't flaunt it, and they don't charge you $5,000.
Yeah, especially when they put financial advisor / consultational medium or something like that. Those titles makes you kind of wonder.
And if you have to dial a 1-800 number to get a hold of them, probably not a true medium.
Well, you think she would have known she's going to get caught?
Right?
Well, it reminds me of Sylvia Brown when she got busted for telling a family that their missing kids were gone. They were dead. She had communicated with them. And then we'll come to find out the kids weren't dead. They'd been abducted and were stuck in a basement for years. And everybody stopped looking for them because, Sylvia Brown said they were dead, so there's no point in looking for them anymore. Those are the ones that really ruin the true nature of a medium.
Yeah, because I've met a lot of mediums, and the ones I've met are very genuine. They all had their own individual way and techniques on how they got information, but they definitely weren't in that category of try to make money off people or anything like that. They were just very wholesome, I would say trustworthy people if you were to go to them for help.
Exactly. And my point's not to bash on mediums. There are true mediums out there. My point is, if they have a 1-800 number, like Kayla said, and if they charge you an astronomical amount of money, a typical reading, we'll get to tarot here in a little bit, but a typical reading is like, oh, maybe 15, 20 bucks. Some of the higher end ones might charge you 50 for a 30-minute reading, but they're not going to charge you more than that.
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah, that's like that up here. I think the most I've ever saw was one guy was charging 50, and I thought that was a little high.
Well, now they have cell phone apps that will tell you your future or will read your tarot and I'm not going to say all of them, but most of those I would not trust either, guys.
Well, I would kind of be in that same category as some of the Ghost Box apps, so I would tend, not to buy into that or even want to use one, to be honest with you.
No, if they're a free app, great. If you have to pay 20 bucks for an app that's probably going to be manipulated and is fake anyway, and like Trip was saying earlier in the show, that is watching your chat strokes and listening to your conversations on the phone, they're going to be reading what you do and pick up patterns of your life anyway. So they're not going to be accurate.
No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, people nowadays, because of our smartphones, everything, they get an app for something, they find that would be convenient. I'm talking the average people that don't really get into the paranormal, but when they see an app like that, they would be very lured by it, I could see.
Well, you also got to think when you're talking to anybody who's telling you something about yourself, what can anyone figure out about you off of your social media, off of the internet, off of different sources too?
Well, absolutely. And if you know basic psychology, you can read a person's life just by watching the way they walk, watching the way they talk. If you know basic psychology, there's a lot you can pick up on that you can just kind of, feel your way out with the conversation you have with your client. So
yeah, that's like a form of profiling, and then basically you can get information from that.
Absolutely.
Right. People would be surprised at the amount of information I can get on someone with just a first name.
Great. Tell everyone on the radio that you're a creeper. That's a good idea.
Oh. So, talking about pendulums again, do you have to use the same amount of protection using your pendulum as you do with your spirit box?
Well, a lot of times when I'm using a pendulum, it might be inside someone's home. I find that's more convenient to use a pendulum inside a home. I would be, before doing an investigation, I always make it a habit of doing my protection prayer anyway. I tend to use a brass type pendulum because basically it's a very neutral type of metal, supposed to say something like sterling silver, or say even crystal type pendulums. I think you take them to a haunted location, you don't know what's absorbing into it, and if you don't clean it properly when you get home, you could end up having little problems from that.
And that brings up an excellent point. How do you cleanse your pendulum?
Well, it depends on the type of pendulum and what you have, right? So the metal ones are easy. The copper, they do discolor with, oxidization and the environment and that. So, believe it or not, I found vinegar works quite well. Little wipe with a cloth and vinegar, and it cleans it up really well for the pendulum, and also the L rods. They're what I say is they're brass basically, and so I clean them up that way as well.
Do you spiritually cleanse them as well, though?
Basically, I'm not using it in that content of asking real deep questions. I'm more detecting energies, so it could be environmental energies of streams and stuff, and finding, the energy hotspots in a home, and then maybe going in there after with the ghost box or, say, EVP aspect of, using a digital recorder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you smudge them at all, or?
I have in the past, yeah. Actually, I tend to use a lot of incense, so I'm really big on frankincense and myrrh. I use a lot of that in the house, and I have used smudging. I find it takes a bit more effort to do that, but, I do that occasionally.
Okay. So, switching gears just a little bit, as a paranormal investigator, what's the scariest investigation you've been on?
Seeing actual teammates be attacked by unknown forces that, you go to their aid to help and find out you see physical stuff on them, like scratches, bruises, welts, and that kind of stuff. And then personally, myself, when I first started doing ghost hunting years back, I wasn't protecting at first, and I went into one location and was in Victoria. I was at a cemetery with some other people with a small group, and I got my energy drained. And so when I left, I was like white as a ghost, they said. I was very pale, and so it took me quite a few days after to start feeling normal again. It felt like the flu in a sense. My body aches and joints, and I felt really lousy. I just wanted to lay in bed.
Yeah, that sounds like an attachment.
Well, yeah, you could look at it in different ways, but it definitely was draining my energy. And so then after one of the ladies that did a lot of protection, she told me some basic things to do. And then from there, I kind of developed my own ways of doing it. And I've been fine ever since. So it's usually seeing other people now that have gotten attacked. I find some people are more vulnerable to that kind of thing on investigations in your group there.
Right. Now, what would somebody listening to the show, and I'm just the questioner here. I'm not going to answer anything. If somebody wanted to get into paranormal investigation, what would be your advice?
I'd say go with a good group to begin with. Find a group in your area that's close and that has a fairly good reputation, and look at their websites. And usually word of mouth will start to get out there about a group. How good they are, and are they following certain protocols that are going to be helpful for a newcomer going into ghost hunting.
Okay. Cool. Kayla, you got any more questions?
No, I'm good right now.
So damn quiet tonight.
Huh?
You're so quiet tonight.
I'm still not feeling that well.
Oh yeah. We had a late night last night.
Oh, okay. Little run.
I think they made some of their stuff too close to the fish.
Huh? Too close to
okay.
the fish.
Mm.
The meal that we ate.
Okay.
Oh, I got you.
I see.
I got you.
Something's not agreeing with you.
No.
Oh, it hasn't been for about 12 hours.
Yeah, I hate those bouts of bad indigestion.
So what's interesting is when you start talking religion, there's a lot of religious aspects out there that say divination is in general is evil. How do you respond to that?
Well, I guess they look at that. There's a path in the Bible, I guess, that they're referring how they base their claims. Again, you have to look at how the Bible was formed, right? I'm not going to get too into all that, but I just would say that a lot of the Bible's based back in the Middle East, and then, of course, the Holy Land, and the Jewish faith with with the Jewish aspects that influenced Christianity later. So I would say that generally you got to go back in time and look at, there was mysticism in the Jewish faiths and different sects and stuff, and they were using divination themselves. And I've heard stories of even some Catholics using divination, like priests and so on, and even that happened in the Vatican, so behind closed doors. So again, what you do behind closed doors and what you do outwards in that field is two different things, but it does happen.
Well, like any tool can be used for good or what they call evil. So I think it would depend on the person and what their intentions are.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, if you want to know something about something, or if you're putting your thought out in the sense of creating it to do harm for somebody, yeah, that's a whole different aspect of, especially using with a crystal and a pendulum, for example. Now you basically, say a quartz crystal, that amplifies your thoughts. And so you having that twirling around, basically, it's almost like a little vortex that it's opening with your intention behind it.
It's a telephone.
Exactly.
So, Cole, from the Catholic side, what are you aware of with divination in the Catholic belief?
Absolutely nothing, and what goes on behind closed doors, we don't like to talk about in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
But
I've had a lot of friends that are Catholic, and they've talked about it too the same way.
Yeah,
they don't talk about. They're like, there's no one named Crystal, but little Chris and little George probably have a bit to say.
And that goes with all beliefs. There's going to be bad apples in every belief that are going to twist the words of their holy text. And, I think it all comes really down to power and manipulation and controlling the masses. And if they tell them, oh my God, no, you can't play with the Ouija board or tarot cards because they're of the devil, then you're going to put fear in the masses and they'll listen to the preacher more. That's really what I think it boils down to.
Yeah, basically. And, I have heard of, different Christians actually using Ouija boards, and they wanted to have that supernatural experience. So you have that side of some Christians. I know a lot of born-again Christians that I know that know me as doing ghost hunting and that. They like to talk about their paranormal experiences while they're on holidays at a haunted bed and breakfast they didn't realize was haunted, or a hotel, or a tourist resort or something of that nature.
Right.
Yeah, because what they perceive is very unusual. It goes against some of what they were taught, and so they're curious at the same time, and then at the same time, they want to tell somebody. So a guy like me is the best guy to tell. So.
Well, that's going with that same thing, that if you're told from the time that you're little over and over again one thing, then that's the way you're going to think about that until something changes your mind.
Yeah. You get a certain mindset that's developed at a younger age, especially if you're brought up in a religion.
Growing up evangelical my entire life, if it wasn't of God, it was of the devil. That's what they always told you. There was no such thing as aliens. They were demons. If there's no such thing as spirits, they're demons. Everything's a demon if it's not, fits into their little paradigm. So, you don't even talk about Ouija boards. Oh my God. No, that's just like a taboo word to even bring up. And I worked at Target in 1999, 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember it was Halloween, and this little girl walked up, and she was looking confused, and I ran the toy department, so I asked her, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for a game. Okay, what's the name of the game? Or what's it do? She said, well, it talks to spirits. Oh, a Ouija board. Okay, they're over here under Hasbro. What are you going to do with it? Oh, we're having a Halloween party. We're going to play with it. This little girl's like 8 years old. Like, yeah, how about Scrabble? Why don't you get Scrabble? That's probably a better game. No, they walked out with a Ouija board, but...
Well, also they could be feeding into that fear factor and what they've heard about the Ouija board, and they want to experience some of that.
Yeah. And it was just funny. To me, it was the irony of Atlanta, of Georgia being in the Bible Belt, and I was surprised they hadn't banned the Ouija board yet. But hey, it makes money.
Yeah, I mean, especially how they market them and so on. So, I mean, they put them in the color pink to attract young girls and stuff like that, to be fashionable. So, yeah, it's also the marketing behind some of the ones that are in toy stores.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be talking Ouija boards in the last hour a lot more extensively. So next weekend, we're having Cryptamnesia on the show. And if you haven't heard of Cryptamnesia, you need to go look them up on YouTube. Punch in Cryptamnesia. Look for a song called Poltergeist, and you'll get a taste of them. I'm actually getting to listen to Poltergeist at the top of the hour. But
I like
they're actually...
Bump in the Night.
Huh?
I like their song Bump in the Night.
Oh, well, I like the video. So...
The video's good.
We'll see what happens next weekend, but next weekend the band is actually going to Cole's house. We're going to be doing the show live from Cole's house. We're just basically going to set the microphone in the middle of the table so everybody can hear them, and we're going to ask questions. And if it all pans out right, and I hope you're listening tonight, Josh. I told Josh to have the band bring all their instruments and set up in the living room, and we'll have a mini concert. But at least one song. We'll wake up the neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, why not? It's K4.
Okay.
So looking forward to that show. For our listeners, Cole and I were actually on their show. Oh God, when was that? A month and a half ago now?
October.
Yeah, okay, about a month. And to find what's the name of that station that they're on? Do you have that in front of you?
I will in about 2 seconds. Keep talking.
Okay. Dead Man Radio is the name of their show. And Cole will tell you where to find them. They have their show live every Wednesday night. Great show. We actually talk paranormal and, paranormal basics, really.
So you can find Dead Man Radio on KOUVradio.com.
All right. And yeah,
they have one heck of a show actually every weekend. They just announced their lineup on their Facebook page, Dead Man Radio. And if you go look it up, they not only have a lot of heavy metal bands, but like next week they have one of the masters of horror. She was one of the ladies who created the E.T. puppet for the show E.T., the extraterrestrial.
Oh, right on.
Cool. Yeah, and so she does a lot of the Hollywood makeup and puppetry for the horror movies.
And I know also they're trying to get more UFO speakers on the show. They try to get Nick Pope, for example. Nick Pope, I can tell you from experience, is a hard one to get on any show. He is the former Ministry of Defense from the UK, very versed on UFO lore and reports from the UK side of it. And coming into next year, and I'm really just killing time right now until the top of the hour, but these are things I want to put out. But coming into next year, we actually have a couple authors we're going to have on the show that came from innertraditions.com. One actually wrote the Spirit Encyclopedia, and the other one I still need to reach out to and get his book. Because I thought we had his book, but I don't think we're doing it. He wrote about, he's another alien author. But we're starting to get... Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was mistaken. It's February 12th. They're going to have her on the show. Her name's Dee Wallace, and she's also in E.T. I think she's the mom.
Seriously?
If I remember right, yeah, because I can see her face right now, and I'm pretty damn sure she's the mom. She's also in Cujo, The Howling, and 10.
Oh, you go, Josh. So they just started Dead Man Radio up like 2 months ago, because I think we were only on their third show, maybe the fourth show. So they're kicking off, and I completely support them. S4 works with them on some of their stuff they do. Also, they're going to be doing some of the intro work for our show. So definitely go check them out. And for our locals, so for those that are in the Concrete and Upriver group, Adam Waffen Division is on the move. We do know that. Caleb Cole got arrested. He is the cell leader. For those that don't know who Adam Waffen Division is, they are a terrorist group of the neo-Nazi variety. They got banned from Canada. There are still members in Canada, but they have trained up here in Concrete. They are on the FBI's watch list. I know that for a fact. So just be aware of them. If you see the tags 1488, make sure you call the sheriff and let them know. Just wanted to throw that plug out. And what are we doing in December, Cole?
I'm going to be opening gifts. Not mine, but other
All
people's.
month long?
Yeah, I'm just going to walk into people's houses and start opening gifts. I'm not taking them. I'm just going to leave them there. But
Okay.
That's my plan.
Unless they're cool gifts.
Yeah, that's true.
So we try to shake it up in December. In December, I know we will do the Creatures of Christmas show, but we'll try to find something different from the last 3 years we've done it. It gets hard because I get tired of talking about Krampus. Krampus is overdone, so we try to go for the unique side. So. That's going to be a task. So if you want to hear about a Christmas creature, send us a message, and we'll research it. Kayla.
I got you.
Oh. So what
I
do you
actually do have an idea for that.
Say again?
I do have an idea for that one.
Okay.
We could concentrate on creatures that they've used throughout movies.
No, that'll be another show.
No, ones that they've turned like. Okay, so we've always talked about the ones that we knew as evil from the folklore.
Right.
But Hollywood got tired of that for a while. They got tired of using those same characters.
Mm-hmm.
So they started making different shows about the happy-go-lucky Rudolph kills all his friends.
So you're talking about like the evil Jack Frost type thing.
Yeah, and then not just Jack Frost, but like literally there are movies where the elves go insane, where Santa goes insane, where Rudolph goes insane, and they start taking out everything.
Well, that was
like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh.
I wonder when they're going to make that one live action.
What was that, Eric?
You still awake?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was just listening to you guys. Little conversation there. Evil Christmas.
So that'd be a curious experiment too. So have you noticed at any point besides Halloween where there's more activity at a certain time of the year with the spirit box?
A little bit. I've had some interesting experiences around Easter of all times with the ghost box. So, yeah. And then, of course, things to do with the environment. If there's a storm coming in or just after a storm, sometimes that perks things up on the ghost box a bit more on the radio waves. So, yeah, there's different variables that could affect it. And it makes sense. Atmosphere, radio, they kind of play hand in hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd be looking at solar flare and sunspot activity as well with that. Do you keep a log at all? Do you document this?
Basically how I've been doing it is through sessions and highlights that I post up. My stuff on YouTube was, if you go on there, you can see my first time doing it right to where I am today, my progression with different radios and more, radios that would be suited for talk radio and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's come a long ways from when I first started doing it. And again, I didn't really think I'd be on radio shows like yours and other people's. I never had that in mind. So that was some lady in New York that I know. She encouraged me. She had heard my stuff and encouraged me to listen to her show. And then next I was on her show, and it kind of took off from there and ended up on other networks doing shows and that. So, but I didn't do the Ghost Box live stuff for a while. It was actually Dave Scott that really got me interested in doing it. So,
okay.
Yeah. I would go on I'd go on shows with audio files for samples, and that was basically it.
Have you ever tried using a spirit box during an eclipse?
No.
Okay.
That'd be an interesting experiment too, as well. Just from the the solar and lunar energy that's put out.
Yeah, actually, I found using them. If you got a thunderstorm within, say, 5 miles or so, you can hear kind of the clap of the thunder in the background. I found the ghost box perks up quite a bit at that time with that burst of energy in the atmosphere.
Have you ever tried it during a full moon?
Yes. It depends on the time of year, I think. But some of them, I've had some interesting stuff. A lot of sometimes nastier stuff I've had come through on a full moon. So more like swearing and stuff like that, and the F-bomb and stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's something, again, I didn't talk about earlier. If you hear something like the F-bomb being said on the broadcast radio through the ghost box, you can't say that on the air to begin with. They do not like that. That's a no-no in your country as well as mine. And, so I have had that in the past where I've had swearing.
Yeah, and that's FCC regulated, so that wouldn't be permitted on normal broadcast radio. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, and it's like I asked, where's that coming from then? Because you can't say that on broadcast radio. So It's a way, it's kind of like confirmation to the ghost box, because all of a sudden you got this really bad swear word, cursing word said out like that, and you're going like, where did that come from?
Right. So for listeners that want to find, actually, I'm going to back up. So where do you see Bill Hauser in 5-10 years?
Well, eventually I'll probably, because I'm 56 now, so going into 57 next year. So I'm looking at, I'm retired from my job, so I'll probably maybe within 5 years kind of slow down a little bit on investigations. We'll see how that goes, and I think I'll still do ghost box sessions and videos occasionally, and I'll probably still do talk radio to some degree. So, because doing talk radio kind of opened up a whole new frontier for me, and I enjoyed that. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. So that's a different aspect of doing ghost box sessions, is live radio sessions on air.
And part 2 to this, where do you want to see technology going with the ghost box in the next 5-10 years?
I think in a long way, I think I'd like to see a more cleaning up of the circuitry, maybe less static coming through, that kind of aspects. So, you know, I know they've already done a little bit of that where they've gotten some reduced static coming out of a radio, but then you also cut down a little bit on your reception. So then you have to look at other means to working with that. So, to be honest with you, I think the apps are going to still go strong in that regards, in that category, but I definitely don't want no part of that. So I think, you know, I'm a radio guy, so I think that's where radio is going to go, is a more refined circuitry.
So would that make the spirit box more compact versus, you know, a larger box?
Yeah, they'll probably, you know, as things get smaller and scaled down, yeah, you'll get more compact versions. And you got a lot of builders that are, you know, doing some interesting stuff. So what they're doing, I mean, you can do a lot of things with the ghost box now as it is and work with it. So, you know, for example, you can use an old black and white travel TV and use that as a stand-alone device and use your ghost box and actually have images come through, and you have the volume turned right off on the TV. So it's just the images coming through that fuzzy little screen. I've done a little bit of that and had some success. So that has worked.
And that definitely reminds me of the movie White Noise.
Yeah. They actually, Frank Sumption had a ghost box worked in with a TV, and they're all in one there. Just a little before he passed away, and yeah, it's interesting. So maybe that. See, now TV is a great thing to be using, especially analog. There's no more analog TV around these areas, so it's all gone digital. So I think it's a really good time. So where are those images being come from?
Right.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, where can they find Bill Hauser's YouTube?
Well, they can find me under my name, Bill Hauser. Well, basically under Candoey, Candoey. That's my internet nickname that I use. And I'm also on SoundCloud. I have the audio library that, like little samples that people can listen to. And that's under Bill Hauser, as well as Autoboom under Bill Hauser. Basically, I do a podcast on there now.
Okay, right on. So on that, we are going to go to our final break of the night. You're going to hear Poltergeist by Cryptamnesia. And when we come back, we're going to start talking about Ouija boards.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, cause I'm rotted here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire. But I cannot die, I am your poltergeist. Souls that If I watch this, I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your motherfucker. They say I'm evil. They say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch and watch this, I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist. 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 Oh, poltergeist. 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 Poltergeist.
Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Welcome back to S4. It's been a great last 2 hours. Bill had to go. He's got an early morning, so it's going to be Cole and Kayla and I, and we're going to talk about Ouija boards.
Rock on.
Flight talking board.
So Ouija boards actually go back to, I believe it's the 1900s.
Really, is that it?
No, it's not.
Oh,
It goes
It's
way
the
beyond that, I think.
1800s. Yeah.
I believe it made its big appearance because they're doing seances during the Victorian era is when they're actually doing seances a lot. But most of those were proven fake. You gotta be someone behind a curtain making the noise and making things move. Are you looking stuff up?
dude,
What?
the one of the first mentions of the automatic rating method used in the Ouija board is China, 1100 AD.
Oh, there you go. So, some of the rules with the Ouija board, it takes at least 2 people, minimum. You don't ever use a Ouija board by yourself.
Can I ask why?
What that reminds, well, for one, you don't have enough energy as one person to move a planchette around and have anything really happen. Because again, it's energy connecting to the planchette that actually opens the door to bring stuff in. The more people you have, the more energy you have, and of course, the more people you have, the easier it is to fake a planchette moving. But you need it's all about energy opening up the portal for communication. So when I was stationed in Germany, 1990, first introduction to the paranormal, really, other than when I was a child and saw some weird stuff. But we had I was a straight combat medic. Most of my friends weren't medics; they were infantry. They were communication, supply, stuff like that. So this little combo guy grabs me. Hey, Private Cooper, come here. You gotta come to my room. I've got a Ouija board. I'm like, seriously? Okay, let's go check it out. And so I know damn well it was him moving the planchette around because all of a sudden his voice changes to a woman. He's like, okay, whatever. But yeah, that was my first introduction actually to a Ouija board. Because like I said, I was born and raised assembly of God. Oh my God, you don't even bring up a Ouija board to my mom. She would have had a heart attack, I think, right there. But the first rule, you don't ever do it by yourself. You have to. You're supposed to have at least, at a minimum, 2 people. Because again, it's the more people touching the planchette, the more energy you have moving the planchette, and the more energy you have opening that door. So again, out of all the divination we've talked about tonight, we never really hit on scrying mirrors. And So I get emails every day from various religious sources, Homeland Security, law enforcement, fire, EMS, and I get asked, why do you get religious stuff? Well, because I like to keep a pulse on extremism in general, and a lot of your extremism comes from religion. It doesn't matter what religion, there's extremists in all beliefs. But what I find in a lot of the religious emails I get, especially during Halloween, was meditation opens up the door for demons. Seriously? And there's schools in the South that won't let these classes do yoga because, oh my God, yoga opens up the doors for demons. Which is kind of why we're having the show tonight. No, it doesn't. Meditation in general, yes, it opens up your mind. But if you're using protection, if you're grounded and you're shielding, with anything you do, it doesn't matter. Whether you're using tarot, most real tarot users or readers, they know protection. They already ground and shield. Any medium knows they need a ground and shield. Otherwise, I know tarot readers that can, on average, do maybe between 3 and 5 actual readings a day, and they have to stop because their energy is drained. And that is with grounding and shielding. So, it's not hard to figure out the posers out there. And always go by how much they're charging, what they're telling you. If they're charging me $500 a minute, they better be telling me what the damn lottery numbers are or something.
Well, with that though, I would expect it to be a little bit more if they can only do about 5 to 6 readings a day.
Why is that?
Just because then you're not actually making any money, and if that's what you're doing for a living, like $50 is not unreasonable then.
No, and like I said, that's a true reader. A true reader is only going to be able to do maybe 5 or 6, and it depends on how much energy they're putting into their reading. And again, there is no real danger to a tarot reading. A tarot reading is opening up higher vibrations. You don't have the malevolent entities or the bottom feeders essentially coming through a tarot deck. Usually, someone that actually knows how to use tarot has their cards covered all the time. They are smudging them between readings. Sometimes. You take care of your cards, they take care of you. And again, it really is all about the energy you're using and what your intent is. So Ouija boards. Timing. Most practitioners suggest using the board at night when they say less interference is in the atmosphere. And that's interesting because you find that with the paranormal in general. Oh, we have to investigate at night because that's the only time the spirits are active. No, actually, spirits are active all the time. You know that.
Yeah, but at night you can just scare the hell out of people a lot better.
Well, yeah. So the only thing I can say about the ones that investigate at night, don't do it. Most of them actually know that spirits are always active. But the reason they do it at night is because it is quieter. It's easier. Your senses are at the highest, and it's easier to pick things up. But spirits are always active. Always. So, absolutely right. Ouija boards can be used at any time of the day. Not just at night. It's just more of a fear factor. And, well, the more fear you're putting out, the more malevolent entities you're going to attract. That's just a fact. And as far as investigating with a Ouija board, I highly suggest you don't, because if you're going to a suspected haunted location, that's the nature of what you're doing. I wouldn't take a Ouija board because, again, that's opening up the basement door, not the attic door. So, number 3 they have here is create some atmosphere. The Ouija is more fun if you darken the room and light some candles. Turn off the TV and any music to minimize distractions. Well, okay. So, candles I can agree with. Candles are another form of, well, energy. But by turning off your TV and any music to minimize distractions, again, you're heightening your senses, and of course you're going to pick up more. And if you want to scare somebody, of course you darken the room.
Well, but wouldn't turning off the TV and those type of things also help, honestly, because of the radiation they put out?
Good point. The radiation they put out, and again, electronic manipulation, totally agree. You've got the TV on again, like we were talking about in the second hour. You got
losing you, Eric.
Huh? What's up?
I started losing you there. We started losing you.
Oh, that ain't good.
Yeah, you started to sound like a transformer for a second.
That's not good at all. And no, I don't have a Ouija board.
As soon as you started talking about electronic manipulation.
Oh, of course. All right. Now they have a seat. So the two users should sit facing each other with knees touching if possible, with the board on their laps. Don't use a table. I would disagree with that. And so, where did I get this? I got this at liveabout.com. So if you want to find this, this comes straight from the complete guide to using a Ouija board properly. So we're picking it apart.
Now, does it matter what your Ouija board is made out of? Like, do certain types of, let's say, wood work better than the little cardboard ones you get from Hasbro now, or?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if you make a board, it's going to work a lot more effectively anyway, just because you put your own energy into building your board. As far as types of wood, I would say oak. I would say cedar. Cedar is a protective wood. It's, cedar is healing. Cedar is protective. It's already going to have protection just because of the type of wood it is. Oak is a very strong tree, very strong wood. It's very druidic wood. So if you want a power wood, I would go with oak. So yeah, based on the type of wood it is, yes, I would agree. And again, like we said earlier, using a planchet made of a crystal, you're going to open up the doors of hell. Oh my God.
Excellent.
Huh?
Excellent. That's my plan.
You're going to invite Lucifer into your home. Yeehaw.
I did. I had kids.
Right? So again, have a seat. The two ears should be facing each other. I don't agree with putting the board on, putting the board on your legs. You already have an unstable surface. If someone twitches, the planchet's going to move.
I don't agree with the knees touching.
Well, that's kind of stupid.
Well, I can't frickin' do that.
Right? Put it on a table. You have a flat surface. There's no chance unless somebody's actually, if you have 4 people sitting around a table and the board's on the table, the chance of somebody, playing around and moving the planchet is going to be less chance of it. I say use a table. And if that table starts levitating and moving around, then you got the Ouija board active.
Yeah. Or someone starts, puking up green pea soup.
Or their head starts spinning around.
I have kids. Their heads do that all the time.
Right.
Telling you.
So number 5, decide on a questioner or medium. Even though both people can ask questions or anyone else in the room can, only one of the users should be the medium. That's a poor choice of words. The one to
Yeah.
formally ask questions of the board. So in this context, it's just kind of the person in control.
No, I've never honestly really been into Ouija boards. Like, I had a lot of friends in high school and in junior high that were like, "Ooh, you gotta come and try this," and it never really held much interest for me.
No, and it had nothing to do with growing up. I'll honestly say that. In my case, I just wasn't. I wasn't interested in the paranormal period, growing up. I didn't doubt it.
Mhm.
I had no doubt there was paranormal, but it just, I was into my Hot Wheels. I was into getting my cows ready for showing at the fair. I lived on a farm. Is there Bigfoot? Okay, cool, whatever. Is there aliens, UFOs? Okay, cool, whatever. I don't doubt it, but I don't believe in it either, and it's really not my interest. I
You
remember
were the
being a,
same way I was.
See,
huh?
but that's what I
You were
find.
the same way I was. If it can't help you with your chores, who cares?
Right. And I never saw anything. I never saw it. My first UFO was in 1990. I've told that story enough times, but my first UFO was in, the 90s, not 1990. But I can't, what year was it? I can't remember. But it was in the 90s in Germany. That was my first UFO experience. The
See,
abduction
but
was,
that's the part. Oh, go ahead.
no, well, the first abduction experience, which I wasn't abducted, but knew somebody who was in 1994. So, I was what, 23 years old? In that 23 years, I hadn't had any major experiences other than, my cousin had a shadow on his wall all the time, or a spirit. But other than that, no, I had no reason to play with a Ouija board.
See, and that's what I was saying. That's the part that's really weird is that I was actually really into the paranormal and a really big believer in it most of my life. So I don't know, but the Ouija board itself had never held any interest.
So what did?
Um, Honestly, not much as far as the actual tools to be used. It was more of just your own sight. I grew up in a house that was not very I don't know how to put that. Uh I guess it would be haunted. um there was a lot of death in that house and a lot of different weird stuff that would happen in there. So I guess it was more like just things that you saw yourself. And
Well,
then
that
I'd go and I'd research stuff to be like, why did this happen? What is this?
But that explains it. You didn't need a Ouija board to communicate or see anything because you actually saw it on a daily basis from the sounds of it.
Hmm.
It's the people, I think, or the kids that they haven't seen anything, but they want to. So they're going to go grab a Ouija board to try to incite it, basically. Or in some cases, it's rebellion because they've been taught, their entire life that Ouija boards are evil. So, oh, well, you got to go do it now. So it's rebellion. And I think that comes up later. So,
Yeah.
place your fingers on the planchet. You and your partner should place the fingers of both hands very lightly on the planchet or pointer. Okay, so that I can agree with that. Yes, very gently. I wouldn't say your whole finger. I would say your fingertips. Now you move it. Well, that makes sense. Purposely move the planchet around in a circle on the board for a moment or two to get quote unquote warmed up. You got to warm up the Ouija board?
Well, you're looking into a mirror and saying Bloody Mary 3 times.
Or
And throwing a
Candyman
bag of bones.
5. Yeah. Yeah. And hopping on one foot. Oh, wait. No, you're sitting down at the table.
Okay, now you just made it impossible. Again, I can't do these things.
Oh. So seriously, folks, before you even think about getting a Ouija board, learn how to ground, learn how to shield. And we'll get back to these instructions here momentarily. But I do want to reiterate, a Ouija board, it can cause harm if you're not using it right. But is it something to fear and be terrified of? No, it's not. It's merely a communication tool, but it does open up the bottom door, meaning anything can come through. Uncle Bob, oh my God, Uncle Bob knew things that only he would have known. Yeah, well, so can demons or other malevolent entity types. They know these things. It doesn't mean it's Uncle Bob. I would go by the feel of it. Is he acting, snarky where he didn't act snarky when he was alive? Use some common sense. You're going to know if it really is Uncle Bob just by the attitude of, the communication you're getting out of the board. So number 8 is attitude. Don't let the board control the session. The medium, I hate that word, should begin by announcing that the session will only allow an experience that is positive or toward a higher good and that negative energies are not welcome. Well, folks, hate to tell you this, but that don't work.
Yeah, if they're negative, why would they care?
They wouldn't. Telling them that they're not welcome wouldn't work anyway. They don't listen to you. So, yeah.
And see, that's the other thing is that negative energies, negative entities, they're master manipulators as well. So if you're playing with something that you don't know how to properly use, then you're just inviting that manipulation.
That's why we always encourage you to do research before you go playing with stuff you don't know anything about.
Yeah, Kayla.
Hey.
So number 9, begin simply. Start with a simple question, one that requires a yes or no answer. Be patient. You might not begin to get answers right away. Give the board a chance to, here's that word again, warm up. And if you're a paranormal investigator, I think I already said this, but it's worth saying again. Don't take a Ouija board to a paranormal investigation. You're just asking for trouble, whether you're using protection or not. You open up the portal that's already there. Protection isn't always a sure fix, but use common sense. I wouldn't take a Ouija board. Just try to get an EVP. Number 11, be polite. When the board starts working, thank the board or entities for showing up and communicating with you. That I can agree with. Like we were talking, I believe, first and second hour is, these TV shows that they sit there and they instigate and they cuss out the spirits and they demand that they show themselves and yada, yada, yada. That's just, why are you going to tick off what you might not want to deal with? And that causes further problems. And it follows up. Go ahead.
I know that we talked about spirit boxes, but have you ever heard of, and it's kind of like a spirit box, but they call it a electronic Ouija board. So it's just a regular Ouija board, But it has electronics in it, and when something is spilled out, it types out like a little script
Oh, oh
of what it's
God.
saying for you.
What do they call those? Oh, I know what you're talking about. And yeah, there's actually a team here locally in Mount Vernon. They don't advertise. They just go investigate, and they don't respond to anybody. And that's all they use.
Okay.
Yeah, and the name of it is lost to me right now. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. And in fact, um, 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 the Paranormal Puck,
Hmm.
which the Haunted Crew of Canada uses, or they used to use. I think he sold it, but it that's part of the features of the Paranormal Puck. Again, I think it depends on what kind you're using. If it's connected to Bluetooth or any kind of Wi-Fi, I wouldn't rely on it unless you actually get historical background before you go to the site. But
Hmm.
we used the Paranormal Puck at Northern State, and it was, you could take it with a grain of salt. But when we did ask what the spirit did at Northern State, it did say cow, and we were sitting doing this in a stable. So, on that context, I would say he worked in the dairy farm. He worked he milked the cows. So they can be
Hmm.
accurate, but again, it's going to determine what kind of device you've got. If it's a standalone like what Bill's using, I would give more credence to it. I know the team in Mount Vernon that uses this device does get great responses. They do get great results and evidence, so it can be used correctly.
Hmm.
So number 12, don't ask stupid questions. Avoid questions such as, when am I going to die? If the board answers in 6 months, you might worry about it needlessly because you can't always trust the board to tell you the truth. Huh, that sounds kind of like, not everything on the internet's true. But
Yes, it is. Don't lie to me.
who said that to some people? Oh, yeah. Or like, Anthony says, well, if it's on YouTube, it's got to be true. Yeah, okay. Um, don't ask for physical signs. Many experienced users warn against asking for physical signs that the quote unquote spirit is real or present. Um, that all depends. What do you want to see? If you ask the spirit to move a cup and it does, are you ready for the true results? A lot of these people aren't. You know, I don't know how many cases we've had in the past where, the client called in a team and they went in. And these are the Looky Loos, or the Weekend Warriors. These are the teams that they watch so much paranormal TV that they've got to start their own team. But they're not ready for the reality. So they'll walk into a client's house and something will actually happen. They'll freak out and they'll run out and, they won't come back. And that happens a lot. So,
Well,
yeah, if
when
you're.
your quote unquote ghost hunter is more scared of the entity than you are, you know you got an issue.
Oh. So, yeah, don't ask a spirit to do something physical unless you're prepared for it too. Because if you run out screaming, you just left a client hanging if you're actually doing cases. And then they have to call in a real team to come in and fix your problem and theirs. Number 14, don't believe everything the Ouija board tells you. You think? Just as with any other source of information, don't accept whatever the board says to be truth or accurate. I can agree with that. Um, so, close the board. This is where a lot of people fail. And their recommendation for closing the board, this is an important step. When you're done with your session, intentionally slide the planchet to goodbye and remove your hands. That sounds too easy. Probably because it is. Um, so, if you really want to protect yourself, I would set up a circle. I would set up a circle of, maybe salt around you and your group along with the board. Say your protective prayers based on whatever belief you are. I would keep, like we always recommend on the show, black tourmaline. Make sure you're grounding and shielding. And by all means, push the planchet to goodbye, but it's a little more than that. You want to push your energy into the board to close it. And then cut a door in the circle and leave. Again, with storing your board, make sure your planchet is separate from your board. Don't ever put them together. That will basically leave a portal open all the time, potentially. Not always, but potentially. And, like I used the analogy earlier with keeping ammunition away from your gun when you store it, same concept. When you're doing
Eric, you still there?
Huh?
You went away again.
That ain't cool. It's Skype, because according to the studio, I was still transmitting.
Okay.
I think. We don't have anyone in the chat room right now, so I can't get any confirmation. But like the analogy I used earlier, keeping ammunition away from the gun when you store it, keep the planchet away from the board when you store it. So some of the tips this site uses is have someone write down the answers. Basic journaling. Sometimes the letters spell out very quickly, and it's difficult to keep track of what's being said. A third person with paper and pen can write down the message as it comes. Play sober. You'll get better results if you haven't been drinking or smoking. So, that's a good point. I wouldn't play with a Ouija board drinking anyway. Because that leaves you vulnerable and that leaves you open. You guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe the spirit's an alcoholic.
Yeah. Do you really?
Maybe he enjoys a little drinky poo.
Huh?
Maybe he enjoys a little drinky poo as well.
All right, only one type of spirit at a time.
Right. We'll talk about those spirits in December. Maintain control. If the board starts getting rude, vulgar, obscene, or otherwise disagreeable responses, break off the session immediately by closing the board.
Or smack the friend to the left of you.
No, don't do that.
Depends on the kinds of friends you have, I guess.
Right. Don't take it too seriously. Most bad or negative Ouija experiences occur because the users take it too seriously or get freaked out by it. Oh, yeah, there you go. It's made by a game company, so it's got to be, Oh, wait. They say you can buy official Ouija boards, but a printable version works just as well. Enter the game with patience and a sense of humor, and enjoy a fun activity. It's a game the whole family can play. Yeah, no.
What is the actual age limit rating on the Hasbro game?
I don't have one in front of me, obviously, but I believe it says 8 and up. I can't remember.
Oh, man. Okay, so, Anthony and Cheyenne and Kimberly.
No.
Wow.
Ages 8 to adult.
No, you know what I mean, though?
No.
8 is ridiculous.
8 to adult.
Oh, so I'm looking at another reference. So usually when I'm doing research at the last minute for the show, I pull up at least 5 different references, just so we have a well-rounded research experience. And again, I always encourage our listeners to, do your own research. Don't take our word for it, because, well, it's the paranormal. There's no expert in this field or on the show. But I find it funny because it says, never ask a Ouija board when you're going to die. What do you think? So, can you imagine Uncle Charlie, or any other spirit for that matter, listening to a living human going, when am I going to die? Yeah. Do you really think they're going to answer you? Seriously? Tomorrow. Yeah, no.
And I'm sorry, but if something came through that and said right now, it would ruin your whole gaming experience.
Right? Oh.
Huh.
Oh, right.
So I found the 2001 instructions from Hasbro.
Okay. Pray tell, what do they say?
So we'll start with assembly. Remove the 3 glide feet from the runner. Discard the runner. Attach the feet to the underside of the planchette by pressing them firmly into the opening of the post. How do I make it work? At night, leave the board and the planchette side by side under a lamp with the light on for approximately 10 minutes. During the day, leave them in a sunny window. The glow will last for approximately 30 minutes. Setup. If desired, set the mood by dimming the lights or turning them off. Before using the Ouija board, wipe it with a dry cloth to remove dust and moisture. Sit opposite another player or gather around the board if more than 2 are playing. Set the Ouija board either on the players' laps or on a small table between them and within reach of the players. Additional players are encouraged to look on and take note of the Ouija board's responses. Set the planchette in the center of the Ouija board. Place 2 fingers lightly on the planchette. Now, concentrate. What do I do now? Players take turns asking questions, and all should agree to the questions being asked. Ask only one question at a time. Ask your questions slowly and clearly, and wait to see what the planchette spells out for you. If nothing happens, try asking another question. Allow 1 to 5 minutes for an answer to come. Look into the future, have fun, and remember, the Ouija board is just a game. Or is it?
Oh, good God. And therein lies the problem.
So I think the planchette on that one, the little mirror in the center, is actually a reflective glow.
Huh. That's, yeah.
So it's a glow-in-the-dark planchette?
Yeah. I honestly think so.
That's why they want you to put it
That's why they need you to activate it. Okay.
Yeah. So, this is interesting. If you want to take a break, have one person keep their hand on the planchette to stay connected to the energy you built. And again, this source is always end your session with the Ouija board by saying goodbye. The location you use should be ideally dark and free of background noise. If a spirit starts communicating with you through the board by counting down or going through the alphabet, immediately end the session by saying goodbye. This is a common theme in Ouija users who have contacted a malevolent spirit that is trying to leave the board. If a spirit starts communicating with you by making the planchette make a figure 8 or infinity symbol, immediately end the session by saying goodbye. This is another way malevolent spirits have revealed themselves. Yeah, I think somebody watched Exorcist too many times. If you begin to suspect that you are in contact with a malevolent spirit, immediately end the session by putting the planchette on goodbye. It also helps to leave the physical space you are in to sever the energy between the group and the spirit. Oh, no. That doesn't work. Oh. Don't use a Ouija board in a cemetery. I can agree with that one. Again, that kind of goes along the same lines as don't use a Ouija board in a, known haunted location. If you speak to a spirit who identifies himself as Zozo, end the session and say goodbye.
Why?
Zozo.
Who the
is
hell's
dead.
Zozo?
Huh? So
Who the hell's
Zozo is,
Zozo?
you can Google. And then Joe says, say goodbye, shoot the board, burn the board, bury the planchet in a graveyard. No, you're not supposed to burn the board. Kind of like the same concept of these knuckleheads that have a demonically haunted location and they burn the house down. Well, now you've just released the spirit into the property. So I stand corrected. I have had a Ouija board one time, and it was in an apartment I lived in South Carolina, and it wasn't my Ouija board. It was under the bed, and I threw it in a dumpster. So this dumpster had a slot. It was locked. There's no way that anyone could have got this Ouija board out of the dumpster and put it back in my apartment. But sure enough, that Ouija board is back under the bed again.
Okay, and you just randomly found a Ouija board under your bed?
Yep. Somebody left it in the apartment I moved into.
Huh.
And it moved itself back into my apartment from a locked dumpster. Fortunately, it didn't follow me to my next duty assignment. When I left South Carolina, it stayed in the apartment in South Carolina. So, yeah.
So then you were just the jerk that left it for the next guy.
Pretty much. How you get rid of it?
Awesome.
I didn't try to get rid of it at that point in time. Joe says mail the Ouija board to Italy. Yeah. And see it come back. That would be fun. So
that's way too
been
much
a great
work
show
and a lot
tonight,
of postage.
We're like 15 minutes out from the end of the show. So bottom line.
Zozo's stupid.
Huh?
Zozo's stupid.
Zozo I kind of put in the lines of Slenderman. Just one of those urban legends that people talk about. Now there is another spirit. Her name is Zaza. People get confused. Zaza is actually a female spirit that just likes to mess with people. She is not malevolent. She just, hey, look, a Ouija board's open. Let's go poke some people, and she does. And you got the knuckleheads that, oh, Zaza's evil. No, she's actually not. She's just a fun spirit that likes to scare the hell out of people. And you ask for it because why else would you get a Ouija board? The fear factor. So next week, again, is Cryptamnesia. Tentatively, hopefully, nothing happens in the next week that they can't make it because of schedules and whatnot. But right now, they are scheduled to be at our show at Cole and Kayla's house. And Joe says, glue a brick to the Ouija board and dump it in the ocean. That might not be a bad idea because of the salty composition of the ocean. It might neutralize it, honestly.
And dolphins are smart enough, they know not to play with them.
No, they probably would. They're intelligent. And they've got that pointy nose to move the planchet around. And November 30th, we will have our Thanksgiving roundtable. And I always wondered. So, you got stupid people that pull out a gun and think a gun's going to kill a ghost. But I've always wondered if you could get shotgun shells that had salt in them. Buckshot.
Ooh, let's try it with Mom's salt gun.
Huh?
We have they have those salt guns now for like
bugs.
Well, salt's a protector. So I've always wondered. I'm not an advocate of shooting ghosts or nothing, but I wonder if using a salt shell in a shotgun would actually do anything to a spirit. Things that make you go, I wouldn't use them
I don't know.
I wouldn't use them against a zombie though. That'd just, piss off the zombie.
That would burn like hell. Think of how many open sores those guys have.
You gotta do the double tap. Double tap.
So, do salt in a brass shell.
Right. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show, and we will see you next week. Again, we'll have our Thanksgiving roundtable November 30th after our Cryptamnesia show. And Joe says a little black powder and a pound of rock salt. There you go. That'll work. Against werewolves. We ought to do a werewolf show sometime.
That will have no effect against a werewolf.
How do you know what will have an effect against a werewolf?
Sure it will.
Huh?
Silver bullet.
You ever met a werewolf?
Yeah.
I forgot.
I think I saw silver bullets for like $200.
That's not bad.
For 5.
That's really not bad considering the price of silver right now.
I can't remember where I saw them. I looked them up one time.
That's quite reasonable.
We gotta make a Paracelsius. That's like a trident. And it's the ultimate protection. Anyway.
I'll just stick to mercury bullets. Won't be good.
Ooh, and Joe's got a silver bullet necklace, 45 long Colt. Oh, I want it. So I want to thank Cole and Caleb for being on the show tonight. Bill Hauser. If you missed it, look up Bill Hauser on YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel. He does live ghost sessions and records them, and they are archived. And have a safe week, folks, and we will see you next week. Have a good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on S4, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. You can contact S4 through our website at www.s-4radio.com or on Facebook. Make sure you give us a like on our page and join the Forest Moon Paranormal group. If you are interested in advertising, take a look at our packages and contact Cole or Eric at 1-360-999-2830. Again, thank you. And remember, keep your eyes to the sky.